Hey, just a heads up that the following content may be disturbing or triggering for some listeners and is not appropriate for children. Please take care of yourself and others who may be listening with you. Welcome to the Bonus Babies Podcast, a show that has no easy answers, only hard questions.
Basically, I take all my trauma that I've ever been through, flip that around, and create triumph with it. And I share that triumph with others. You know, I take everyone that I want to win with me together, and we win together. Even those who have hurt me in my past, I don't hold it against them. You know, we've all changed. I'm not who I was 10 years ago. I'm not who I was yesterday. You know, so I forgive. I forgive, and I spread love and triumph, and we win together. Because at the end of the day, no matter what you did to me and the hurt you caused, I am who I am today because of what you did to me. Like, because of you, if anything, I should thank you for putting me through what I went through, because I wouldn't be the resilient individual I am today.
Can you tell me what you call the kids who you've cared for over the years?
We feel that the children that we receive coming into our home are bonuses. So we call them bonus babies.
I love that. This is your host, Jayne Amelia Larson, and I'm a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate volunteer for youth in foster care. Yeah, I know it's a mouthful. In the same way a CASA works, I explore all things in the foster care maze by talking to kids, parents, caregivers, attorneys, social workers, therapists, really anybody and everybody who will speak to me to keep the conversation open and the information flowing about all things CASA.
Hi, this is Jake Eberly, the producer of the Bonus Babies podcast, and today Jayne speaks with Rob Rodriguez. And despite an incredibly difficult and unstable adolescence and severe bullying because of their gender choices and sexuality, they still have an incredible attitude and encourage themselves and others to push forward and create the future they want. Rob is an inspiration to all of us. Enjoy the episode.
I'm here with Rob Rodriguez. Hi, Rob.
Hi, good morning.
Okay, I want to talk about your tattoo. You have a butterfly right on your throat. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
What else you got going on?
I have two full sleeve tattoos. I have a Bad Bunny tattoo,
Ooh.
Jennifer Lopez, a tattoo from Puerto Rico, some flowers here. You know, a little bit of everything.
That's right. You're Puerto Rican, right? Yeah.
Yes, born and raised in New York.
Okay, show me the lip.
Of course.
Okay, I'm sorry people can't see this. I want a picture of this for a social post. It's a heart, right?
Yes. When I was in high school, a friend and I, we got it matching tattoos. We were like, sure, let's just do something spontaneous and random. And we did a heart on the inside of our lip.
Yeah, it looks like it was painful, no?
My least painful tattoo, to be honest.
Inside your lip was the least painful? Wow.
I kind of laughed most of the time because they had to tape down my lip. So it was a little funny in the moment, but I didn't feel anything. It kind of just felt like when you bite your lip really hard for a second, and then just went numb, almost.
Huh. Okay, well, wow. Okay. So, Rob, please, tell me a little bit about yourself. How were you raised? What's the skinny?
Of course. So I'm born and raised in New York. I am 31 years old, Puerto Rican. I will be 32 in April. So that's exciting. My birthday's coming up fairly shortly.
Yeah. Are you an Aries?
Yes, an Aries baby, and I love it. And it I'm not too big into horoscopes, but when you look at some of the Aries horoscopes, it really does match who I am, I think. So I would like to think so. You know, very spicy, fiery personality, dominant, straightforward and blunt. You know, lots of energy, you know, for the most part. So those little Aries parts, I kind of like to think that I am.
All good qualities.
Of course.
Okay, so how were you raised?
Yes, so my mother passed away when I was 4 years old, and due to a drug and alcohol overdose. And then I lived with my biological father for a couple years. You know, he was in and out of rehab. He had drug addiction and alcoholism problems that he was dealing with. So in and out of halfway houses, and then he finally got his one bedroom where we lived together. And then he met a lovely woman who had children of her own, and they started dating. They got engaged. We moved in together into an apartment. We were living in Harlem in New York, and then we became a family. Shortly after, they had a baby. So then it was four of us because she had two children of her own, the baby that they had together, and myself. And he passed away March 10th, 2001.
What happened?
Due to a hit-and-run car accident.
Oh,
It was a four-car collision. It was a drunk driver who ran a light, smashed into a person that was making a right turn onto the boulevard. And then that drunk driver hit my father, who was waiting on a corner right across the street from his job. So he was just about to get to work. And it was a tragedy that morning.
I'm sure it was traumatic for all of you. You just made a new happy family.
Yeah.
So what happened then?
So then after my dad passed away, my stepmother decided that we would move to Puerto Rico. Went on vacation first to Puerto Rico, tested the waters, visited some my step family out there. And but before all of that, my stepmother that I was living with was extremely abusive, physically, emotionally, mentally. A lot of tattoos on my body cover physical scars. And I even have one in the back of my head. And unfortunately, I didn't get to share much with my father before he passed away what was going on because I truly feared her. And he knew of many instances. He caught her in a couple of moments, where I would come home and I had stitches. And he's like, what happened? And I would try to lie and create a story that she told me to create and tell my father. But unfortunately, he was smart enough to put some of the pieces together. And he left many times. We would pack our bags and we would go live with my aunt. And just for a couple of days. And unfortunately, a few of those instances and moments, he fell back into alcoholism and drug use. So then while he was getting help and getting services, I, of course, went back to live with the family. And, well, fast forward, after he passed away, we went to Puerto Rico. And then we ended up moving to Puerto Rico. And it didn't work for me. I was, I was acting out a lot. I would like to admit that. And it was because I truly didn't know how to express myself and really ask for help. And it was a cry for help. I was in a very abusive environment, and I was coming into my skin and my identity as being, queer and gay. And at that moment, I was a boy who liked boys, and I didn't know what that meant and what that felt like, and how to express that. So it was just a lot of self-hate on myself, too. And I told my stepmother, I said, listen, enough with the fighting. I want to go live with my aunt in New York. So my aunt is my biological mom's sister, and my dad and my aunt were very close. So that's why when we would pack a bag and head out, we would go to her house, her home in Queens.
Right. And how old were you at this point, would you say?
In Puerto Rico?
Yeah. When you said, I want to go live with my aunt in
I
New
was
York.
12 years old.
12, okay.
Passed away when I was 11, so I was about 12, late 12, when we decided to move to Puerto Rico, and I left.
Right. And then you came back to New York.
Yes.
What happened?
Lived with my aunt for a couple of months, attended middle school, and unfortunately, I was acting out again. I will admit that I wasn't the easiest student, in the classroom. I had lots of suspensions under my belt, lots of trouble, lots of detention, and my aunt's job was at risk because she kept taking time off of work. My aunt started off as a ambulance driver, and then a paramedic, and then she was an EMT, and then active EMT. So could you imagine in the middle of a work call, getting a call from the school saying, I know you're helping injured and people and who need help, but we need help here too,
Yeah.
And that just wasn't working for her. And she tried and tried and tried. And I was a good kid. I acted out a lot because I was hurt. I was frustrated. I was confused. I just didn't know where my life was going. And I lost my dad and I lost my mom, and just the universe wasn't playing on my side as what I felt should have been my side at 12 years old, And she sent me back to Puerto Rico. She was like, you need to give it another try. I love you dearly, but this isn't going to work. Went back to Puerto Rico. And was there for a longer period of time. I went to school. So that I was enrolled in school with my step-siblings and my biological little brother. And coming more into my sexuality and my gender, I acted out again, I guess. I just wasn't an easy student. And I ended up having to go back to New York. And my aunt at the airport picked me up, and I in between these like 2 years, I went back and forth one more time. It just was a couple months transition. It just didn't work. I tried it again. I was on a plane by myself quite a few times. But in September 2004, my stepmother was like, "Yep, go back to your aunt. I can't deal with this. Being gay was very difficult for her to accept. I would do dance talent shows at school and get severely bullied, food thrown at me. I was in fights constantly because in Latino culture, Marianismo, machismo, it's not a good thing to have the typical male wanting to wear makeup and paint their nails and dance to Shakira and Jennifer Lopez. Like, that just wasn't a thing. So I was being bullied a lot, and it was too much for her to handle. She didn't want to help stand up, against the bullies for me and with me. She just thought it was easier to just run away to solve that problem. And she goes, "Listen, go back to live with your aunt again." And I was like, "Okay, this time I promise, I'm going to be great. I'm going to behave." I didn't like the instability. And straight from the airport, my aunt dropped me off at ACS, which is the Administration for Children's Services. And
Okay, wait. Wow. So she picked you up at the airport. You had no idea. She takes you to ACS and she leaves you there.
Yes.
Do you have any idea what that was going to mean?
No, I didn't even know really fully grasp what foster care was, and my stepmother along the years had threatened that many times. If you don't behave, I'm gonna put you in foster care. But the foster care components in Puerto Rico are a little different. Like, it's a little more dangerous. It's a little less successful. It's a little less helpful for youth. It's more of a place to just keep them until they're 18 and ship them off. And that day, I remember driving from the airport, and I was like, "Oh, the exit's coming. We're gonna get off and go to Titi's house." And she kept driving, and I was like, "Where are we going?" And she's like, "We're just gonna take care of some stuff." And when we got there, something that is very important to me is that when I got dropped off and I was crying and I met with the caseworker and my aunt was pulled somewhere else and, they were talking to her in a different room. In order for me to feel better, this caseworker turned into her cubicle and she handed me a cow beanie baby. It was a beanie baby of a black and white cow. And to this day, I still have this cow. It was one of the only things that I made sure that in the transitions of each foster home, I kept this in my backpack. I was like, this is my friend, this is my support, and this was a comfort for me. And I still have this cow.
Wow. So at that age, that was a comfort to you, that little doll, basically?
Basically.
Yeah.
I don't know how I connected and where I connected with it, but it just meant something for me. And I remember her turning to me and being like, "When you're feeling sad and you're feeling low and alone, hold on to this. This will help you." And it's crazy because you could watch, foster care movies and documentaries, and there's lots of stuffed animals involved. When you go to court, they give you, court bears, they call them,
Yeah,
and
there's a lot of teddy bears. And
lots of teddy bears. So, yeah.
Yeah, so this sounds like a pretty good caseworker, but even so, your foster care experience was pretty hit and miss.
So she was just a caseworker for ACS. She was in charge of placing me in a foster care agency. So that first couple of days, I spent the night in a group home setting. It was a placement home on off of 23rd Street in New York City, in Manhattan. And it was like a room with like a couple of beds, like cots almost, like twin-size beds. The showers were monitored, food was monitored. We all had same matching pajamas and toiletry kits. And I almost ran away with someone who was there, and he was queer, and he was like, "Listen, I could get you out of here. Like, let's go and start a life together."
He
And
was
I was
gonna
like,
string you, huh?
yeah, totally. And I was like, "Wait, you want to flee? Like, run?" Like, he's like, "Yeah, I know the back end exit and this and that." And I'm like, no. That's not going to work for me. Like, I'm nervous. I'm scared. Like, I can't. He ran away and I stood, and I was like, I don't know where I'm going or what's next for me, but running away, I've tried it before as a young adult, as a kid almost. When I was younger, when after my dad passed away and my stepmother began dating other individuals, I wasn't okay with that. And I ran away. I ran to the park. I ran to a friend's house. I got on a train at one point. I went under the turnstile, and I, of course, ended up being brought right back home. But it didn't work out. So I was like, I can't do this. And one day they called my name, and they were like, Rob, pack your bags. We got a home for you. And that ended up being my first home.
Was that a good home?
It wasn't. So it was a good home. I just didn't have good experiences there. Not everyone in that home was great, you know. I think everyone in this world is good, you know, but everyone's not necessarily always great. And it consisted of a foster mother, a foster brother, who was roughly around my age, and a young foster sister. Eventually, the foster mother, started dating the daughter's father again, so he was around. But he was a drunk and abusive and wasn't very kind and borderline homophobic. And the long story short, the foster brother ended up molesting me for months. And I just endured it. I just went, not endured it, but like I just went right through it and endured what came with that. And it was tough for me. And eventually I fought with the foster father, and, you know, he blamed me for many things, like things being stolen and all types of stuff. But mind you, my aunt at that time had visiting rights with me. So about once or twice a month, we would meet at the foster care agency, and it was supervised visits, and she would bring me teddy bears and a Game Boy and CD player and all types of nice things for me. And my foster brother would take these items, and give them to the girls he was trying to impress in school, like that he wanted to date. So the things were going missing in the house. It wasn't me. It was my foster brother. But of course, that's their biological family, and I was the one to blame. And after a while, I was like, you know what? I can't take it. I just took whatever I could take and shoved it in a backpack, and I ran away.
So you couldn't tell your aunt that the foster brother was molesting you? You couldn't tell anybody?
I couldn't tell anyone. I wanted to, and I was smart enough to know, like, if I do it, you know, but the thing was, I thought that they were just going to keep me in the home, but, like, the family would get in trouble. And I was like, I don't want to be a snitch and then have to deal with those consequences, you know, maybe them not feeding me or more abuse. So I was like, you know what, I just keep it quiet. And he threatened me a lot. So he was like, you know, I'll beat you up, I'll get you jumped, you know. And in that moment, I started off being homeschooled. So my foster mother was the teacher, but she worked the full 9 to 5. But she would come home and review on the computer program our assignments, and we'll go over equations and things like that. So we had tasks for the day, and we would take turns. Like he would go on the computer for an hour, and then I would. But in between those moments, it's when those sexual acts were taking place.
So you ran away, and what happened then? Because in the end, you had, how many placements? You had 7 placements.
7 placements.
Right, so that included homes and group homes and also...
residential treatment center.
Right, and why that kind of center? What happened? How'd you end up there?
So with the residential treatment center, basically I was in my 3rd foster home, and one day we had a meeting at the foster care agency, and they're like, Rob, we're going to put you for a couple of months upstate New York, in Pleasantville, New York, and it's a all-boys cottage, and that's what they call them, cottages, and you're going to share a space with a bunch of other individuals just like you, but we're going to monitor you, we're going to see if you require medication or not, because I was on many different medications, ADHD, ADD, depression, and I wanted off of these pills. You know, I felt massive mood swings, peaks and valleys of just mood swings throughout my days, and I knew it was because of the medication. I didn't want to be dependent on that. I wanted to work through my anxieties and my problems and depression. And so when we got there, I basically was in a room where I was observed many hours of the day, small classroom settings, like 5 to 6 kids in a classroom. There was chores. We all had like dinner at a certain time, breakfast at a certain time, lunch at a certain time. We all had to get in a van to go to the clinic that's on the campus and take medication every morning, where we all got online with a little cup. They would ask you to open up your mouth, look under your tongue, keep it moving. Made some good friends there, though. It wasn't easy because I also dealt with a lot of sexual abuse in that space, in the showers, in my bed. You know, the person that I shared a room with molested me in my, when I was sleeping. And of course, I was awake when the act happened, but I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. In a way, I kind of felt like a question: is this what life is supposed to be? Because in the second foster home, two of my foster brothers in that home molested me as well. And they were both in gangs, and they threatened me with gang violence. One of them in particular was straight out of prison. Another one was straight out of a juvenile justice center. And, they came out with this mentality of, you're queer, you're young, and I'm just going to take advantage of you. And a lot of it was, are you hungry? You want food? Okay, so you know what to do in order to eat tonight.
Oh, no, really?
And, you know what to do if you want to be safe on the bus. So, because I know all my gang members around the neighborhood and on the block, and I would need to walk down that block. There's no other way home. So, I even ran away from that home. That was my second foster home. And when I got to the third foster home, my foster parents were very sweet. They were older, but it was a lot of church involved. It was very church heavy, Southern church folk, great food. It was amazing. I loved it. Every foster home that I was in was, they were like West Indian, Caribbean, or of African American Black descent. And I loved it. Necessarily I didn't fit in, because also a lot of my foster siblings were like, they were Black or Jamaican or West Indian, but I was Puerto Rican, white, passing. I didn't really fit, and I stood out, even when we went to church. And that church ended up bringing me to the front one day and praying the gay away. And I was made an example in front of the whole congregation of what it was to be queer, and I was going to be damned to hell. And all the reverends put their hands on me in the middle of the church service, up at the front, and they tried to, quote unquote, pray the gay away. And that
pray the gay away. That is just gross.
And that traumatized me. That was hard.
Yeah, because they're trying to make it like there's something wrong with you, and then all the abuse on top of that, right?
So that was my third foster home, and that was in between is when I went to the residential treatment center. And I was there for a couple of months. It was on weekends, there was like reward systems, so you earn points to go home on weekends, you can stay up a little later, things like that. And I dealt with quite a few acts of sexual violence in that space, and it was hard. So when I got discharged, they actually discharged me with no medication. They were like, Rob is good to go. They don't need any type of medication to deal with. They learned coping mechanisms, therapy techniques. I did a lot of storytelling and writing in my journals and things like that. And which, odd enough, it's interesting to share. In that point of my life, I wrote a lot of sex literature. I'm saying that wrong, but I wrote a lot of stories that involve like sex telling. And I then realized it was because of all the sexual abuse that I tried to turn it into a positive thing. I was like, well, what if I can create this fantasy world of what this should feel like, with a relationship, and in that moment I was bisexual, right? And years ago, most, queer individuals came out as bisexual. They tested the waters, right? We saw how people reacted to us. And then we were like, I don't like girls anymore. I'm gay, But in that moment, I even wrote sex stories about women and men and women and women. And it was helpful for me.
Do you still have any of that?
I don't. I wish I did.
Darn.
In one of my foster homes, that third home, I left a big box of items in the attic. And I never got it back because shortly after, both foster parents ended up passing away almost right behind each other. Like, I think a few weeks apart from each other. They both passed away in their sleep.
Oh, my goodness.
It was devastating.
Okay, so that's the third home. Then what happened? Because you still have a couple of years to go, because you did find the right place in the end.
Of course.
We're not quite there yet, right?
Right. So in the next home, so this is the third one. So now we're in the fourth one where... the fourth would be the residential treatment center. Yes. And then we had I was 16 at this point, and they were like, okay, we're going to give this another try, but we're going to put you in a home where you're only around females. Only women, a foster mother, maybe some foster sisters. How does this sound? And I was like, okay. I felt a little safer. I was like, let's give it a try, you know. In that moment, females are like my best friends. So I was like, great, this is a play day for me. I love it. I'll fit perfectly. And I went into a foster home in Queens. Well, these were all in Queens, but I went to another foster home in Queens where I was her first foster child. And to this day, we still talk, we text, we keep in touch. I went and had dinner a couple days before we left to move to California, and I got to see the family. But in that space, at one point, she went on vacation down south to visit family. And we were in me and a foster sister were placed in a temporary home. It was a couple blocks away, and it was a beautiful house and a little inflatable jacuzzi in the back. And it was two foster fathers. They were husband and husband. They were partners, and they had lots of children, all different ages. It was a big, beautiful home. Couple days in, I was drugged. I was given an alcohol and a cup of alcohol, and they were like, come to the back, let's all hang out in the hot tub. So in that cup, I'm assuming was drugs because of the after effects of what I'm about to share. And I ended up getting molested in the hot tub. And my foster sister at the time had seen it from the upper window and came downstairs and like got him off of me and pulled me out and brought me upstairs, in which the next morning I woke up with this black vomit all over me. I was naked on the bunk bed, and I was covered in black vomit. Which now, later knowing, drugs and things, there are a couple of drugs that can cause your vomit to turn black. So I had no recollection, of what happened the night before.
So this is the foster dad. These two guys, like supposedly good guys, lots of kids, big beautiful home, jacuzzi in the back. They drug you and molest you?
Well, one of the fathers did. One of them went back inside immediately and went to sleep.
So he ignored
not
it?
To,
he
or not, right. I don't know if he knew what happened or he knew what was going on and it was like, I can't do this, I need to step away. Because the next morning when I woke up, I got in the shower, I cleaned myself up, I took the blankets and I put it in a bag and I tied it and put it underneath the bunk bed to hide it, and I put fresh bed sheets that were in the cupboard, and I went downstairs. I had a massive migraine. The bathroom was covered in vomit, so I cleaned that up too while I was in the shower. And when I went downstairs to get water, the refrigerator door was open, and the other spouse slams the door and goes, you're not going to ruin my marriage. Don't you say a word. And in that time, it was summertime, and I was in a program called Upward Bound. And it was basically a summertime learning loss program in a college where I got to regain some of the credits that I had lost due to some of the school that I missed.
Yeah, because you changed schools and sometimes you had to miss school and all that, right?
And even missing school to run away from my bullies. So if my bullies were leaving at 9th period, I made sure I snuck out at 7 or 8 to get the bus and not run into my bullies because, many times in the first years of high school, I was severely injured and bullied and jumped. Yeah, at one point I was even in the hospital right before my birthday, and I had severe bruising. My face was all like bruised, and I had like lack of hearing in one ear because I had bruises behind my ear. It was really, really bad. And,
this is just terrifying. It sounds terrifying, Rob.
Yeah,
But I look at your face and you're smiling and you seem so lovable and so accessible. You don't sound bitter at all. You spent your teens as a fugitive, as an abused fugitive.
Honestly, I learned to forgive. Forgiveness has healed me in ways I can't explain. I can't be angry at people. I can't be angry at the universe. For so long I was angry. And I can't. Man,
I'd be fucking angry. I would be so angry.
And a couple of times I ran into some of my abusers. And like, that's a whole nother story. But at one point when I transitioned from to one of the homes, the school that I went to, my first foster brother ended up being transferred to that school, and we would bump into each other in the hallway and he would chase me out of the school. Like, I would go onto the bus, duck and hide, and like yell at the bus driver, drive off, please, drive, because I was so afraid that he was going to hurt me again. He found me. I ran away from my first foster home, started new chapters, and he found me again. I was like, talk about it. I know the borough of Queens is huge, but it was so small at that point. And
Okay, I know you're
yeah,
working on a book, so you're
yes,
gonna have to save all this, right?
of
Because as
course.
you said, there's that story and another story and another story and another story. Have you thought of a title yet for your book?
Yes. So my book will be titled Can't Hit Rewind. And
Can't
that is
hit rewind.
because,
Hmm.
we can't hit rewind and change anything from our past. We can't change the story, that came before us. But we could press play and we can control our futures. We can control our storyline moving forward. So I can't hit rewind and I can't change anything that I went through, the hurt, the pain, the joy, the love, the heartache. I can't change any of that. But I am today who I am today because of all of those experiences. And moving forward, I will press play and I design my story. And that's why I titled it Can't Hit Rewind.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Thank
really
you.
good.
Thank you.
And yeah, and so somehow you came out of all this okay. You ended up at a great school. Tell me about that.
Yes, so in my last foster home, which was with the all-female home, I made some great relationships there, and including meeting a foster sister who is my sister today. Like she comes here with her fiance from New York. We go over there. We were together for New Year's. We were together for the 4th of July weekend, and that's my family. And I was able to create that in my last foster home. There's no foster sister there. We are brother and sister. We are siblings, and we're inseparable. And that's a relationship I can't, would never change for the world. But when I was in that last home, I was again in a school in Queens, and predominantly West Indian and Caribbean. And of course, like we mentioned before, being queer and gay in that space is not acceptable. In that culture, being gay, people are killed on the islands, for coming out queer and having queer relationships. And I was bullied a lot. I was at school dances. I got beat up in the middle of a school dance, and security had to pull the guys off of me. I was chased multiple times down blocks and running onto buses. It was just very dangerous environment for me because I was always a very loud and proud individual. I didn't like being closeted. I liked being bright and colorful and expressive, and for some people that didn't go well. So one day, I decided I wanted to do a gay-straight alliance. And the school was like, absolutely not, Rob. Like, you're going to ruffle feathers. Respectfully, they turned to me. It was like, haven't you learned enough? Like, aren't you like, and I was like, you know what? No, I have not, because there are other youth in this school who are dealing with the same issues who would appreciate a gay-straight alliance. A safe space for all of us to meet and talk and find solutions to these problems of bullying and these acts of violence that were happening in school and the community. But the school said no. So one day I show up at school and they're like, Rob, come straight to the office. And I'm like, uh-oh, what happened? A couple of my peers from the school and some of the other queer students decided to meet up early in the morning and paint with like acrylic paint on their face the rainbow flag. And they walked through the lunchroom with pride flags, and the school was not having it. And they said it was my fault, right? They were like, Rob, like, you caused this. I'm like, I didn't cause any havoc. I caused youth to stand up for themselves, to finally love something that they, and stand by something they love and want to change in the school. That's what I caused. I caused a movement. I caused these youth to find a voice and a strength in themselves to stand up for themselves and what they really wanted for the change of the school. They were like, this isn't going to work. But I have a friend who is a principal at a school in downtown Manhattan. I know it'll be a different commute for you. It'll go from 20 minutes to an hour. But it's an LGBTQIA school. Not everyone, it's an alternative school. Not everyone there is queer, but you got to go through like an interview process. And are you interested? There'll be many youth like yourself. These movements that you're trying to create can be done in the school, and you'll have no problem. And I'm like, sure. So I took a trip down there one day to Harvey Milk High School down on Astor Place in New York. And
Yeah, that's a great school. It's a great
yeah.
school.
And I did the orientation. The interview. Then
Right.
the
So
interview
were you
led.
nervous?
Were you? Of course. But in a way, I felt home. Like I felt Like, this was where I needed to be. Like, when you got off the elevator, there was an American flag and a pride flag, and there was like art all over the walls, and it was like queer images, and I connected with all of that. I was like, wow, that's me. Like, that looks like somebody like me with another, a gay boy on a poster.
Yeah.
In that time, I was like, look at the gay boys together. Wow. Like, I went into that interview, and they said I flying colors, aced it, and next thing you know, they offered me an orientation, and I started Harvey Milk High School in 2008.
Right, and you had a 1-hour commute each way.
Each way, it was about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on train traffic, but I did not care. Like, it was so worth it. I met lots of friends. I got to really learn who I was. I connected with, like, the teachers and the professors in the school, and this is, for those who don't know, it's a very small school. It's like on one floor, and it's about 150 kids maybe, couple of classrooms, our gym was the cafeteria, where we had dance class. We went to a local dance studio a couple blocks away, and I graduated 2009. I was a dance major in that, that was my gym, was dance, and I used dance to express myself all the time. I was dealing with so much hurt and feelings and emotions, and I didn't know how to express that, and dance was my outlet.
So you're happily married now. So how did you, and for a long time, you've been with your man for 14 years, and you've been married for 10, right?
Yes.
So how did you find love after all the hardness that's been shown you? How did you find that?
Of course. Well, fast forward. I graduated Harvey Milk High School. I went to Columbia College in Chicago as a dance major. But a couple of months in, I ended up injuring myself. I ripped a tendon in my right foot, and it required me to have a cast up to my knee. And as a dance major, hello, like, what am I doing? Like, there's nothing for me to do until I, heal and do the physical therapy and get back. So my foster care agency called me up, and they're like, Rob, your medical bills out there are very expensive. Like, we cover New York State, insurance and medical coverage, not Chicago. Can you please come back for a couple of weeks, take a leave of absence, a medical leave, and we'll get you situated. You'll do your physical therapy. We'll get that cast off your leg, and then we'll send you right back. So came for a couple of weeks, did some physical therapy and things, and then my school was like, wait, before you come back, can you stop by your high school and pick up some transcripts and paperwork that we needed, for our offices? And I was like, sure, no worries. Called them up, stopped by. So I'm waiting in the lobby for the guidance counselor to come out with my paperwork, and I see a very handsome young man. And I was with an old high school friend of mine, and he's like, oh boy, don't even think about it. I'm like, what? I'm like, he's just cute, right? I'm like, okay. Few seconds later, I see him again. But I was like, wait, didn't he just go that way? And my friend goes, yeah, he's a twin. Those are twins in the school.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, oh my God, but I like the second one. Like, he was cuter, because the first one had like a lot of tattoos and piercings and colorful clothing, but the other one was like dressed in all black and had like a cap on, and I was like, oh, that was kind of hot. I like that one. And he was walking with an old friend of mine that I knew from school, and I kind of went up to her really quick. I was just like, hey, what's his deal? Like, what's my shot kind of thing? And he wasn't interested. And I'm like, oh my God, I was determined. I was like, I need his phone number. I have a couple days before I have to go back to college. I got to get his number before I leave. So I found ways to show up at school every day. I was like, I think I need another document. I have a counseling appointment. I have an idea for like a community event. And the school was like, Rob, what are you doing? Why are you here every day? And why are you dressed looking so good like this? Where are you going? I had on my fresh pair of sneakers every day, new clothes. I went shopping. I'm like, he can't see me in the same jacket twice or the same pants twice, right? That's how I thought in that time. So I would try a couple days at a time, because Harvey Milk High School also has an after-school program called the Hedrick Martin Institute. and I was an alumni there. And so, you could stay there till like you're 26 years old, as long as you're attending programming and resources, things like that. So after school was like, Rob, you can hang out and stay. But during the school hours, they were like, Rob, you gotta go.
Yeah,
So
that's just weird, right?
it's just weird. Like, you graduated and, okay, great. Community events, Rob, thank you so much for your efforts for the community. We love you. See you later. So I would show up every day after school, and I was like, I gotta get this guy's number, right? And I would try to talk to him, and he would give me the cold shoulder. He wouldn't respond. Friends were like, Rob, trust me, the whole school wants, the twins. You don't have a chance in life. Just give it up. Go back to school. Like,
but you don't give up. You're like super tenacious. No, I know.
And something in my soul was burning for him. I was like, I don't know what's telling me to connect with this individual, but I need to get his attention. So I had to keep telling my foster agency, asking for an extension. They were like, well, we just bought your flight. I'm like, but I have stuff to do here that's important. They're like, what's important, Rob? And I'm like, you'll find out later, okay? So I had to keep asking, and quite a few times they extended my stay. Even college was like, are you coming back? Fast forward, I was sitting in the art room one day with an old friend, like a classmate of mine, and she's like, you keep looking at him over there. Like, you're really not giving up. And I'm like, no. He was sitting on the other side playing the piano, and all of these, like, boys were, like, leaning over the piano, gazing at him, gawking, and I'm like, oh, boy. Like, he must be really popular. And she's like, no, they just want his attention. He doesn't give it back. He's pretty quiet. And I was like, okay, like, but I want to just say hi. Like, I just want to, like, I'm trying to talk to him. He's not giving me the time of day. She called him over, and I knew he was an artist because I would see his art on the walls. He would draw, and I introduced myself, and I opened my phone keypad to the contact, option, and I was like, here, draw me a picture in my phone. He typed in his phone number, and he saved it, and I was like it was like the confetti shot off in my head. I felt accomplished. I was like, yes. But now what do? I have his number. I'm going to go back to Chicago and just talk to him long distance. That's probably not going to work. Also, really didn't even know how old he was. Like, that didn't take, into play. I was 19 at the time, and he was 16.
Yeah, that's not good.
Just turned 16 at that. But honestly, it was one of those things where I was like, college, high school, but kind of fresh out of high school. You're in high school. We could work, right? Like, cool. We ended up dating, and I ended up going back to college, and I dropped out of college and for love, because I was like, I can't do this long distance relationship. I want to be with him. And quick little funny story, he came with me to Chicago to go get the things out of my dorm room without his parents' permission. They didn't know he left the state. We created this elaborate story with my manager at the time, because I had been there for so many weeks. My agency was like, you got to be in school or working in order to stay in care after 18. Like, so I had a friend who worked at a store who gave me a part-time job. It was at Claire's. And she pretended to be the mother of a friend who was like, yeah, Blake is going to stay the weekend. He'll be fine with me and the kids. She knew that we were going to Chicago. And we went by bus to go get my stuff. We packed up some empty luggage bags to fill up with my clothes and items. When we got there, his dad found out. His dad figured out that he wasn't home, because he was like, you know what? I'm going to go to this friend's house and go visit them and say hi to Blake. And Blake had to go, no. Okay. I'm not there. I'm in Chicago. Police got involved. They were calling my phone. We had to get on a flight immediately to come home. I had to leave all my belongings in Chicago. That was the reason why I went. And he was not happy. He was like, I don't know who you are. You're over the age of 18, taking my 16-year-old out of state. Now, when as an older adult, I can look at that and see how problematic that can be. But in the moment, I was like, we love each other. We're dating. Leave us alone, And I got to meet both of his parents. They both basically approved, and we were dating, and we are going on 14 years together. This July 6th, makes 10 years married. When I aged out of foster care at 21, now not being in school, but I was working. So they were like, you can stay till 21 and we'll help you get an apartment. We can help you go back to school locally at a community college if you like. We can get you some medical and, food stamps and, assistance. And I got into my first studio apartment in Manhattan, not too far actually from Harvey Milk High School. And he moved in. It started with, his mom wasn't too happy with it because he was living with his mom at the time. But it started with, I'm just going to spend one night, maybe the weekend. Okay, 2-3 days. And then it turned into one day, a knock on the door. He was there with a full carriage of, a shopping cart full of all his things. He was like, I'm living here with you now. This is how we're going to do this, and I will figure out how to tell my mom. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? But it worked out, and we've been together ever since 2009. And yeah.
You seem really happy.
Thank you.
But I mean, I think that's your go-to as well. But all right, so tell me about your job now, because you also have a really cool job, right?
Thank you. Yeah. So when I aged out of foster care and I started working in retail, I realized there was something else that was missing from me, and it was to give back to those who were in foster care. I was fortunate enough to have youth advocates and things like that help me along the way. Tell me what I was, you're supposed to get a stipend and a clothing allowance and food and things like that. But I saw my peers around me not having those resources, and they were signing themselves out of foster care way too early without proper support. And I was like, you know what? I need to help and give back and be a voice the way these youth advocates were for me. So I started working for ACS, full circle moment, from that drop off, I ended up getting a job there as a youth advocate. But due to funding, that job only lasted like 8 months, and we were all let go and had to find other work. But it kind of worked out for me because I had a lot of secondhand trauma, working with youth who were having court cases, sexual abuse, not being fed, being beat up by foster parents and siblings. And I needed a moment. I knew this is the work I wanted to do in the future, but I needed a moment to step back. But I wanted to continue to work with families and kids. So I was like, you know what? I want to do summer camp. Let's start at small, something that seems fun. There's trips, there's, perks. And I applied for the YMCA of New York, of Greater New York. And I aced my first interview where basically they were like, right from the interview, they stopped me and said, wait, don't leave yet. Can you go get drug tested and background checked right now?
Right now?
Like,
they
wanted
you.
Yes, they were like, we don't start for a few weeks, but you can help us with the planning process and stuff. Like, you're a great candidate for what we're looking for.
You're a force of nature, Rob. That's
Thank
why.
you.
Yeah,
And
really.
I got the job. I, of course, passed everything. I got the job. I started working with the older kids, so like 12 to 14. Because for me, I enjoyed having older conversations. And when you go to amusement parks, they all love to get on the rides, so we're not riding the kiddie rides, things like that. It worked for my dynamic and what I wanted to do. And we did dance together. We did performances. We did a showcase. We did lots of arts and crafts and went up the chain. I ended up finding a YMCA location closer to my home that was walking distance. And went from counselor to group leader to unit leader to supervisor to coordinator, and I went all the way up the chain. But I was like, okay, I need more. I need to do more, and we decided to take a leap of faith and move to California. It was shortly after our dog that we basically adopted. He was 7 years old, but he passed when he was 14 to a long battle of cancer. And we did GoFundMes, we did all the treatments, we did everything we could to give him a fighting chance. But unfortunately, God was calling him. And I will come back to that in a second, but we moved to California and I applied for the YMCA out here, having worked for quite a few years in New York. And I got the job at our preschool next door. And
of course you did.
I know, it was a group interview at that. And I was like, I got this. I was like, because I knew all about ratios and our missions and everything, But I was doing front desk work at our preschool. So pushing papers, swiping tuitions, that kind of thing. And I was like, I enjoyed marketing. I was like, I love doing social media. I love doing banners and posters and marketing plans. And I actually had some experience with that from my previous past, doing side little gigs and things. And I asked to intern. I'm like, can I get a chance to show you what I got? I did a kind of put together. I was like, our website lacked this. Our social media lacked this. I can bring you this. And after a couple of months, they offered me a full-time job as a marketing director, which led to, right when COVID happened, we realized that we needed to be more than just a swim and gym. It's part of our mission and the work that we do. Social responsibility is a huge component. But unfortunately, due to staffing and capacity, we lack that in our community. So we all came together to brainstorm, what if we opened up a resource center? And I challenged everyone. I'm like, what if we did an LGBTQIA resource center? Because the city of Burbank has never had anything like this in the history of Burbank. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So they were like, if you could put it together for us, we could discuss it. Couple weeks in, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the BLM movement sparked here in, globally, but here in Los Angeles, it really pulled at me and close to home, as the protests were happening right outside our doors. So I was like, we got to do more. What if we added a social justice component to this resource center that we're trying to create, right? For like the LGBTQIA youth and families. And then I said, you know what? Burbank also lacks a foster care agency. They have agencies like nonprofits that do the work, but through referrals through the LA County. I was like, what if we actually did some advocacy here and we offered some foster families free swim memberships and toy drives and things like that? And, it got approved. And they were like, you know what? Those 3 buckets are going to be what we're going to create called the Social Impact Center, which became the first LGBTQIA resource center in the history of Burbank.
Bravo.
Thank
bravo.
you.
Really,
Thank
bravo.
you. So I'm kind of the force and drive behind that. And, we've been open since June 14th. Our enrollment is great. We're planning a potential summer camp module for some kids that'll be free tuition to attend and go on trips here at the center. And it's been great. We've built partnerships, lots of funding, lots of donations. The workshops are incredible. And I'm just so blessed to be doing the work I am today because, I always joke. I say, if I have to market one more spin bike, I'm going to lose it, right? I was like, I needed more fuel to my fire every day. Another reason to get up in the morning and feel great about the work I was doing. And basically, my supervisor, he's awesome. He was gracious enough to go, design it.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you?
Yeah.
We love you. We wouldn't want to lose you. So if this is what you want for the community and for the work that you would like to do every day, put it together. Let's pitch it to the board. Let's present it. And that's how the Social Impact Center basically came to life.
See, now you say that you're blessed, but it sounds like actually you're a blessing. That's actually.
Thank you. That is so sweet.
That's what I see. That's what I'm hearing.
Thank you.
So let me ask you a question I ask all of my guests. What is the one thing that no one would ever guess about you unless you told them?
Wow. Wow. I would like to say that as ferocious as I appear, and bold and brave and, brilliant, as some call me, and very energetic, I get scared a lot. I quiver on the inside. I get nervous very often, but I don't allow other people to see that. I'm constantly strong. I'm resilient. I appear bold and bright. But sometimes it gets really dark inside and I get scared. And a lot when I shared those stories and moments with people, they're like, I would have never known that you were either battling eating disorders, depression, issues with, battles with your gender and sexuality to this day, and that's something I think is, when I share that, people really are surprised because when you meet me, I'm just this ball of light and love and,
Yeah, you seem fearless, but you're like most people. There's that part of you inside that is constantly a scared little kid trying to figure out how to move forward, but you move forward. Right?
And there's no other way. Do we have an option? You know what I mean? Like I tell people that when they say that, I'm like, do you have an option? We got to move forward in life. There's so many things I want to achieve. There's so much of the world I want to see. There's so many memories I want to create with my husband. There's so much work I want to do in the community. There's no time to sit around and go, sad Rob, woe is me. Oh my gosh, I've been through so much. Great. So what I do is I take all that hurt and that trauma that the universe has given me, right? All of those things that I've went through, and I use them as tools. I use them as tools to create beautiful things, beautiful outcomes. I don't ever sit and go, my life is awful and I got a bad hand and, what do you call it, the moon and retrograde. And no. I control my destiny. And I like to take everything that I went through, ball that up together, dissect it, and spread it out. Hand out tokens of love, tokens of advice, tokens of positivity and optimism. That's how I choose to use the trauma and the hurt that the universe gave me. That trauma is tools that I see, that I use.
So inspiring. So
Thank
inspiring, Rob. You used a phrase when we spoke first, and I want to try to see if we can remember it right now. And I didn't write it down. Something about turning trauma into triumph. What was that?
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yeah. So basically,
It's kind of what you're saying now,
Yeah.
but can you say it again for me?
Yes. I'm trying to think. I'm like, basically, I take all my trauma that I've ever been through, flip that around, and create triumph with it. And I share that triumph with others. I take everyone that I want to win with me together, and we win together. Even those who have hurt me in my past, I don't hold it against them. We've all changed. I'm not who I was 10 years ago. I'm not who I was yesterday. So I forgive. I forgive, and I spread love and triumph, and we win together. Because at the end of the day, no matter what you did to me and the hurt you caused, I am who I am today because of what you did to me. Like, because of you, if anything, I should thank you for putting me through what I went through, because I wouldn't be the resilient individual I am today.
Wow, Rob. Wow, that's so inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for speaking with me today.
Thank you, Rob. We need more people like you working with our kids to inspire them to be more positive. You've certainly inspired me. So next week's guest is Dennis Rosenbaum, who calls himself a child of the 60s and 70s, influenced by JFK, MLK, and Malcolm X. He was a school psychologist for 38 years, treating literally thousands of kids in his career. And when he retired, he didn't stop helping kids and became a CASA. So join us next week. Thank you, and be well. If you see something, say something. If you suspect a child's health or safety is jeopardized in any way by parents or anyone else, contact the Child Protective Services Agency in your county. 24-hour hotlines are staffed by trained social workers who will help you through the process, and you can do so anonymously. In California, you can call the Child Protection Hotline at 800-540-4000. So if you see something, say something. You might be saving a child's life. If you want to know more about becoming a CASA anywhere in the country, go to nationalcasagal.org, and in LA, casala.org. And if you want to know more about becoming a foster parent, check out the National Foster Parent Association at nfponline.org. There's also faithfosterfamilies.org and adoptuskids.org. There's tons of other information online as well, so you can just hunt around. We also want to thank the supremely talented Christina Apostolopoulos for her beautiful original music. You can find her music on Spotify or Instagram at Christina Aposto. And also thank you to Yukon Har for his engineering. Thanks for listening, and if you like what you hear and you find it as valuable as we do, please rate us and hit subscribe. You can also make a donation at bonusbabies.com. See you next time.